You ever notice how a crack in the concrete, just a tiny one, barely there, can send your whole world sideways? First time I saw it in my garage floor, it was thinner than a pencil line, but my gut told me everything I needed to know. 30 years in structural engineering will do that to a person. You stop seeing just cracks and start seeing the future, sometimes the ugly, inevitable one nobody else wants to see. So I did what any stubborn old fool with too much pride and too many gray hairs might do. I sounded the alarm, sent every sign, every photo, every report to the people in charge. The HOA board, the mighty Karen herself. They laughed. They fined me, threatened to sue me for spreading panic. But here's the funny part. The earth doesn't give a damn about bylaws. So when the ground finally moved, it picked Karen's perfect driveway to start the party. Let me back up a sec. It was late February when I noticed those faint spiderweb lines tracing across the corner of my garage. At first, I chalked it up to normal settling. I mean, I'd been in Rose Ridge Estates over a decade. Seasons come and go, walls breathe, houses creak, nature's soundtrack, you know? But something about these lines felt off. They weren't random, they all pointed one direction, right toward the eastern slope that hugged the back end of our subdivision. My training snapped on like a switch. 2 decades of working in seismic zones had taught me. Cracks tell stories. This one whispered movement. Our neighborhood, supposedly seismically reinforced. The HOA boasted about it in those glossy mailers. Reinforced rebar, stabilized clay, high-grade drainage. Back then, I'd even consulted on a few builds nearby. Wasn't directly involved with Rose Ridge, but I knew the sales pitch was mostly wishful thinking. That weekend, I did what I always do. I walked the block quietly, eyes open. Didn't want to spook anyone. Most folks knew me. I was the quiet widower with a neat yard and solar panels. Built those benches at the trailhead. But nobody wants to hear bad news about the ground under their feet. Still, house after house, there they were, hairline fractures under window frames, stress marks in driveways, gaps where garden walls kissed the house. Snapped some photos, made notes, but the one that really got me was a storm drain 3 lots down, shifted nearly an inch off its collar. Shouldn't have happened. Those pipes are made to flex, not wander. So, I wrote a plain, professional letter. No scare tactics, no bold red letters. Just facts, a suggestion. Let's get an independent soil survey, contact the HOA, do it right. I put the letter in 5 mailboxes, dropped one at the HOA office. Next day, violation notice on my door, stamped official. Distributing unapproved materials and soliciting unofficial engineering services. Not a thank you, not a question, just a warning. That night, Karen Whitmore herself, Queen Bee of Rose Ridge, calls me up. She's got that pageant queen tone, way too sweet to be honest. Hi there, Mr. Delaney. Your little flyers are confusing folks. It creates panic. That's not how we do things in Rose. I kept my cool. Told her the cracks needed a real look, textbook soil creep. She actually laughed. The only thing creeping is paranoia. She told me to get a hobby. You know what I mean? I've dealt with that kind of arrogance in city councils, courtroom depositions, bids where contractors lied until the ceiling fell in. She didn't want the truth. She wanted to be right. I kept seeing more. A crack by the mailbox, a bowing retaining wall, but now people were dodging me. Word travels fast in an HOA, faster than common sense. I've been branded the paranoid inspector. The second fine came, $250 for unauthorized interference. No appeal, just a threat. Keep it up, we'll sue. That night, I sat in my kitchen, staring at the hills. The slope looked so calm, all green and gentle. But I knew what was buried under that grass. Expansive clay, the kind that shrinks during drought and swells like a bruise when the rains come. We'd had both this year, months of drought, then one heck of a February storm. I dragged out my old field gear, tape, angle gauge, notebook, the same kit I'd used after earthquakes. HOA fines didn't matter anymore. I needed the truth. 2 days later, I was crouched behind the mandated hedge line, measuring a fresh drop in the sidewalk near the trail. Half-inch shear. That's not weathering. That's movement. I filed a report with the county. Knew it wouldn't do much. Those departments are slow, backlogged, but you need a paper trail when buildings start to tumble. Karen's next email was pure legalese. Any further attempts to incite fear will result in formal proceedings for defamation. It was her final warning. I didn't answer. I just knew. Something was coming, and it wouldn't care about her precious HOA rules. By then, I'd already mailed my report to code enforcement and the Office of Emergency Management. Long shot, but it was something. The HOA? They fired back. Cease and desist. Thick ivory paper, gold crest. Accused me of creating unwarranted panic. Warned of legal remedies. False allegations. I stared at that letter, shaking with disbelief. Not only were they ignoring me, they were turning me into the threat. That's when Harold Chan, my neighbor and retired civil defense contractor, called. You stirred up the hornet's nest. Karen's got the board fired up. They're trying to revoke your voting privileges for 2 years. It's an emergency amendment. So that's what protecting the emotional health of the neighborhood meant. Circle the wagons, shoot the messenger. I went public. Printed a 3-page summary. Facts, photos, plain English. Posted it at the tennis courts, clubhouse, even the lending library. Signed it. Michael Delaney, resident. By morning, someone had torn every copy down. Then came the surveillance. Black SUV parked on the hill, no plates, just sitting. Karen had hired private security to monitor disruptive activity. That would be me. Then came the moment, the twist nobody saw coming. I was out by the East Ridge, documenting the sidewalk tilt, when Karen herself showed up, heels, salmon pantsuit, barking at me for creating a narrative that the place was unsafe. Said I was fueling hysteria. Told me to leave. I said, Karen, I pay dues. This is my neighborhood. She snapped. Communities are built on trust. Maybe this isn't the right place for you. She walked off, heels wobbling on the same sinking concrete she denied existed. Next day, served. Legal letter, violations, threats of injunction, even removal from the association. They wanted to sue me into silence. That night, alone on the porch, I felt fear. Not the loud kind, the slow, heavy one, like watching a distant wave, realizing too late it's coming for you. I thought of my late wife, Eleanor, how she loved this place, the garden, the dogwoods. She would have told me to fight, even if I stood alone. So I started a folder, labeled it collapse, filed every letter, every photo, every fine. I wasn't sure when, but I knew denial only holds so long before something breaks. But surface cracks wouldn't be enough. If I wanted to truly expose the problem, I had to dig deeper, literally. I tracked down the original developer's files, found an old geotechnical report from 2001. The engineers warned, deep pier foundations needed along the ridge. Not slabs, not shortcuts. Deep piers because of historical soil creep. The HOA brochures? Stable terrain. Full compliance. Either the builders ignored the warnings, or someone covered it up. I called an old friend, Elena Braddock, now deputy director at City Planning. She remembered that site, remembered a last-minute, revised soil survey, different firm, glowing review, minimal risk. The listed engineer? Never licensed in-state. Fraudulent. That's the report the HOA built their narrative on. Admitting I was right would mean admitting the neighborhood was built on a lie. Harold, let me check his crawl space. Just a shallow slab. No deep supports. The original report's warnings had been ignored, and now Karen's house sat right over the thinnest, weakest part of the ridge. Time for backup. I called the state licensing board, filed a complaint about the fraudulent report. Even they warned me, enforcement takes time. But time wasn't on our side. The pressure was building, drought, irrigation, rain, and pride, stacking up like tectonic plates. Then came the break. Elena's contact, a state geologist, came to walk the ridge. Quiet guy, old boots, measure the slope, check the soil. Lateral shear stress, he said, shrink swell movement. If you live here, move your valuables to the ground floor. I found another violation notice the next day for unauthorized inspections, but they were running out of time. And then, just as Karen posed with a rose bush for the HOA app, nature struck back. Drought, then over-irrigation by the HOA, trying to keep their green belts lush, poured water right into the unstable clay I'd warned about. Sophia, a new mom on the ridge, saw her walkway bulge. Her foundation cracked. Karen sent the landscaper to inspect. Alan, who could barely trim a hedge straight. I added the evidence to my spreadsheet. 12 houses now, with cracks, shifting fences, warping sidewalks. The real bombshell came in the mail. Anonymous, no return address. Original stamped blueprints for the East Ridge homes. Right by Karen's lot, a note. Peer option rejected per budget. Proceed anyway. They'd ignored every engineering warning to save a buck. Natalie, the reporter, picked up the story. HOA fine stopped. The community app went under maintenance. Silence. Then the ground made its own noise. Pop, crack, rumble. Sidewalk split. Sophia's backyard cracked, wide open. Karen's retaining wall collapsed. Mud and roses sliding into Sophia's yard. Panic. Sirens. City crews. The slope was cordoned off. Homes red-tagged. Karen screamed to the fire captain at me. You did this. You stirred panic. I told her no, Karen. The soil did this. Your pride gave it permission. That night, reviewing my drone footage, I spotted the real trigger. 5 years ago, the HOA removed a stormwater basin to put up a picnic gazebo. No permit, no geotech clearance. They buried the problem under a gazebo and pretty landscaping. Now, everything was unraveling. Red tags went up house by house. Karen accused me again. You made them target me. I said quietly, no. You did this when you silenced the truth. For the first time, she had nothing to say. By noon, news vans circled. The city declared a geotechnical emergency. Residents demanded board resignations. Karen went into hiding. The next day, Officer Ray Hatcher knocked on my door. You've been listed as the point of contact. Didn't ask for it, but I did it anyway. Organized data, handed it to the city, helped coordinate safety zones and evacuation. The HOA dissolved in everything but name. Lawsuits piled up. Millstone Pacific, the developer, faced civil action. The city, embarrassed, agreed to fund long-term slope monitoring and pay for temporary housing. It wasn't perfect justice, but it was something. And then, one day, Sophia came by with her little boy and handed me a letter. The new board thanked me for protecting not just our homes, but the truth. Called me honorary guardian of the ridge. I didn't cry when the cracks split the ground, but I cried then. Because in the end, you can't stop the earth from shifting. But you can refuse to lie about it. You can stand up, even if you get fined, mocked, threatened, because the truth always, eventually, makes itself heard. And when the dust settles, it's not the loudest voice that matters. It's the one that kept standing long after everyone else walked away. So let me ask you, when the ground starts shifting in your world, do you stay silent to keep the peace, or do you risk everything to call out what's really happening? Tell me below, what does justice look like to you? Have you ever been the only one shouting truth in a room full of polite silence? Drop your story in the comments, because sometimes the only thing more dangerous than a crack in the concrete is a community that refuses to see it.